Hi everyone and welcome to Traveling Misknits. My name is Pia and I am so very happy that you're joining me here today for a little chat about yarn and knitting. Today I am wearing a finished object, my Christmas Day cast on. And I'm just gonna stand up so I can show it to you properly. So here she is, my Christmas Day cast on. And I am so happy with how this sweater turned out. I wanted a relatively simple sweater where the fit and the sleeves would take all of the attention. There is some positive ease on the body and some negative ease here on the sleeves, as you can see. It is relatively short. It hits me at the hip bone where my belt is also usually hitting, which means that I can tuck it in if I want to, but I can also just let it hang loosely without disappearing in wool. It is a little bit longer in back. It's just a few short rows just to make sure that it doesn't pull up and like tips the proportions of the sweater. The neckline I had to knit, 3 times? Yeah. I finished the sweater a couple of days ago. I wove in all of the ends and I blocked it, I put it on, and then I realized that the neckline wasn't able to stand on its own as it's doing now. This is the look I was going for, a standalone neckline that would leave just a little bit of air between the sweater and the body so that it doesn't feel constricting. So I re-knitted in double length so I could fold it over to give it the structure that it needed. But then I discovered that in doing so, it felt constrictive here in front, and every time I bent my head, it was like it was bothering me. So I re-knitted with some short rows in the ribbing. As you can see here, the ribbing is shorter than it is here and in back. In the sweater itself, I also have some short rows in the back just to raise it slightly, and again some short rows down here on the body to lower the back. It actually more or less flew off my needle, or at least that's how it felt. Even with all of the twisted ribbing, I was a little intimidated by the idea of all this twisted ribbing because the sleeves are all twisted ribbing, the neckline obviously, and the ribbing on the body. But it somehow just, flew by, and it was such a joy to knit this. Which is probably partly because of the yarn. It is a Portuguese yarn, and I'm just gonna get my daughter-in-law to pronounce it.
Rosários 4, Romaria.
There you go. That was easy, right? Okay, so other than having a hard to pronounce name, this yarn is absolutely wonderful. It is wonderful to work with, and it blooms like nobody's business. I was so surprised. I soaked this overnight in very hot water and some wool soap, and then I blocked it the next morning, and it was so soft. I will say, as I was knitting, I was a little bit concerned because of the very fitted sleeves. I was, is this gonna be itchy? Is this gonna be, am I gonna wear this? I am gonna wear this over and over because it is so soft and so comfortable. I just have a small tank top under it, and it doesn't bother me at the neck or the sleeves. It's just wonderful. It is 100% wool. It doesn't specify what kind of fiber. It's just 100% wool, untreated, non-superwash, and it is a sport weight. But I will say this yarn, I have more or less knitted it up at a, I have knitted it up at a DK gauge. It's working beautifully again because it blooms so beautifully, but you could definitely also knit it down to a fingering weight gauge. I am absolutely convinced that you could do that and get a beautiful result of a very, like a tight knit sweater that would be very, very warm without adding a lot of bulk. So yeah, I cannot say enough good things about this yarn. It is, as I also said in the last episode, my new favorite workhorse yarn. It is so budget friendly and it just goes with all the yarns that I have in my collection. I am currently in the process of writing up the pattern. I will be starting the test for this sweater soon-ish. And yeah, there are some of you who asked if there will be a pattern. There will definitely be a pattern. I just have to rewrite the changes that I had to do to the neckline to make it just how I wanted it. Of course, when I finished a sweater, I wanted to cast on another sweater, even though I did promise myself to slow my roll sweater-wise. But I had this project in mind that was going to be very relaxing and non-committal. Is that a word? Something that I would just be knitting for fun. I was given this beautiful yarn, the Noro sock yarn. It's amazing. It's a yarn that I've been curious about for a long time. It's kind of expensive, so I never pulled the trigger on purchasing this. I have often been standing with it in yarn shops or adding it to my virtual basket online, but never pulled the trigger. And then a very kind friend and viewer of this podcast gifted me a sweater's quantity, which is just, it blew my mind. Thank you again, Bitten. I had plans to pair it with some drops kit silk and make my Aurora sweater, because the Aurora is kind of like this one. It's a very basic sweater with a great fit and some beautiful details, and I thought, what better sweater to use a yarn that really shines by itself. I cast on. I was ready to go. I had everything packed up in a project bag. I had the needles. I cast on, and it just didn't feel right. Did you guys read the book The Horse Whisperer? I think it was in the 90s it came out, about this man who could hear the horses and communicate with the horses. I think I'm a yarn whisperer. This yarn clearly told me that it needed to become something else. I'm not one to argue with yarn. I would never do that. So what I am thinking right now is that this is going to be the yarn that I will use for my cat number 5. We're gonna have the knit-a-thon, obviously, in April. I need to find the dates, but sometime in April I hope to be hosting the knit-a-thon again. I always do a new design for the knit-a-thon. I do have a design in mind, and I think I'm gonna be using this yarn. I need to do some swatches. It's going to be a colorwork sweater, so I'm going to have to wait until I am in Denmark with my larger yarn collection and can find the contrasting color that I'm going to work with. And yeah, going to do some funny swatching. But yeah, no Aurora for me this time. But I'll get my Aurora. I have two already. I'll be fine. It was just, yeah, it was fun to have the yarn not whisper to me, but really yell at me. This is not what I'm going to be. So, a project that's not a project. Then what did I do? I started knitting on my socks. I keep them in this beautiful sock bag from Knitwear by Mati. I really love this sock bag because see how big it actually is. It can hold 2 sock projects, or in this case, it is holding my very long socks with contrasting cuffs, heels, and toes. And it can hold both socks and both yarns, which is wonderful. If you were watching before Vlogmas, and I think also maybe during Vlogmas, I cast on these super long socks because I want something that I can wear with my skirts. I actually own skirts. I don't wear them a lot, partly because I don't like to wear stockings, what you call them, nylons. I really don't like to wear them. But then I thought, if I have super long socks, I can use those in my boots and my skirt and all will be good. So I started with some Regia. This was sold to me as a Christmas yarn, but a Christmas colorway. I don't think it really is, but it's a beautiful colorway. I love it. All of the Pia colors. What I did is I knit the cuff in some just supermarket sock yarn. Then I knit half of the ball, 50 grams. I just kept weighing my yarn. Now I am in the process of knitting the toe again with the supermarket yarn. And then I'm gonna add a afterthought heel also in the gray supermarket yarn. When I am adding an afterthought heel, it's always like a kind of a guesstimate. If any of you can point me to resources that will help me actually measure where the heel should go, please let me know in the comments below. I have been lucky up until now, but this is a lot of knitting. I don't want to mess it up by placing the heel wrong. So if you have some reliable sources for placing an afterthought heel, I'd be very, very grateful if you'd leave them in the comments below. I will hold out on adding the heel until I have found a safe way to do it, an informed way of doing it rather than guesstimating. I did cast on sock number 2. I am keeping it in a Ziploc bag, not because I don't have project bags, but because I've been wearing it out and about in a not too large purse, so I thought I'll just protect my knitting with a Ziploc bag. So yeah, again, cast on with the gray. What I did is I cast on 62 stitches to make sure that the ribbing is nice and tight. And I did a 1x1 ribbing, which to me tends to hold its shape a little better than 2x2 ribbing. Then I increased to 66 stitches here just to allow enough space for my calves. And then I am slowly decreasing until I am back at 62, which is probably a little bit big for me, but I am so afraid to knit it too tight. So 62 stitches is what I'm doing for the lower part of the leg and for the foot. And yeah, it is just plain knitting in the round, which has been perfect to have a very plain project that I could bring out with me. This went with me to the monster truck show. I did not get a lot of knitting done there, but it went. And it also, yeah, it's been out and about. Oh, I almost pulled the needles. I can't say that I love knitting magic loop. I have tried a lot of different methods to try to avoid the magic loop, but the flyers, the short needles with the little bendy thing in the middle, they don't really work for me. 9-inch circulars, I think they put a lot of strain on my hands. DPNs, no. So the magic loop is my least unfavorite method of sock knitting. I do hope to become a real sock knitter. I love wearing hand knit socks. I would love to have like a collection of hand knit socks, all in soft earthy tones, and oh, someday that will happen. Here is the yarn in the ball. I do not have the ball band anymore. I have no idea where I lost it, but I did lose the ball band, so I can't even tell you what colorway this is. But yeah, I'm loving it. I will try to go back to some previous episodes, see if I have listed it. I don't think so. If I have listed it in previous episodes, I will add it to the show notes for this episode as well. And of course, the show notes are going to be just below this video. I'm going to put links to the things that I talk about. I don't think there's going to be a lot of links today because, as you will see, I don't have a lot of patterned projects. This doesn't have a pattern yet. The vanilla socks, no one needs a pattern for those. And my next project is also without a pattern. If you were watching last week, you heard me talking about all I really wanted to do was crochet on a blanket. So in this beautiful bag from Tina Mai, she sells her bags on Instagram. I will just write her Instagram name here on the screen. She uses all kinds of old fabrics that she just makes into these amazing bags. But in here, I of course have a new crochet blanket. Of course I do. Look, how much fun is this? Huge and so much fun. It is a blanket that I am crocheting in this Lion Brand Ferriswheel in the colorway Morning Java, which is just all of the Pia colors in one ball of yarn. I am using a rather large hook for this yarn. It is a DK weight yarn. I am using a hook 6.5 millimeters to make sure that I get a blanket with enough drape. This is the Tulip Etimo. I have no idea how you pronounce it, but yeah, those. And I really like these. I thought that I was not able to use a hook with a fat handle, but I am. I have no pain from, and this is This is quite a lot of crochet for a not too fast crocheter. This is many hours, many wonderful, beautiful, glorious hours just crocheting. Maybe you can tell, I don't know. Yeah, you can tell here. Here I switched balls, and I decided to pull the first ball from the inside, the next from the outside, just to mix things up a little bit so it didn't get all stripy, correct. So I'm really happy with this. I love the colors. It's gonna be such a nice blanket to curl up under. I am crocheting it in the moss stitch, which I find so pretty, especially in this color changing yarn. I think the moss stitch, you can't really tell how beautiful it is if you are crocheting in a just in a single color, or I can't appreciate it. So I love how it's working up with these with this self-striping yarn. The moss stitch is so easy. If you don't know it, you do a single crochet, then you chain one, single crochet, chain one, and of course you skip a stitch. So you single crochet, chain one, skip one, single crochet in the second stitch, chain one, skip one, single crochet. There you go. There are so many tutorials online, but this is a very, very simple stitch to work. And I really love the fabric that it creates. You don't have any big holes where your fingers or your toes or your dog can get caught. It's a more of a solid fabric that you get out of it. And by going up in hook size, it is still drapey and cuddly and super, super cozy. So I bought 12 balls of this. It was on sale. I got a really good deal, and I decided that this is what brings me joy. I am gonna crochet on this a lot. I hope it doesn't turn into one of those projects that just fall to the wayside because it's too boring. I don't think so. I really love crochet. And actually I am thinking about having this as my plain project when I am going back to Denmark. Just because a crochet hook for sure can go through security. I have been lucky with knitting needles all the time, but still it's a stress. Every time I come to the security, I'm like, please don't take my needles. Please don't. I promise to be good. Just don't take my needles. I'm sure a crochet hook is gonna be just fine. So maybe that's gonna happen. One thing that I am gonna do today is finish Lucas's little sweater. It is hanging there. You can barely see it. It's hanging together with John's sweater. Yesterday, I finally found the time to go to Hobby Lobby and get the extra ball of yarn that I needed. I am knitting these sweaters in the Yarn Be Soft and Sleek. It's a yarn that their mom bought. It's surprisingly easy to work with. It feels much like a wool cotton blend. I know it's not, it's acrylic, but it feels like these wool cotton blends where it's like a 50-50 or thereabout. Combination of the two fibers. Very easy to work with. It knits up beautifully. I was sure I had 2 balls of this. I did not. I had 1. And 1 was enough to knit the yoke, the body of the sweater down to the ribbing. and then I ran out. It's going to be okay. I'm sure this is not the same dye lot. I mean, what are the chances? I don't even have the ball band for the other yarn. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go straight into the ribbing on the body. That's going to be fine. You're not going to notice if there's a slight difference in color. And it is a slight difference. I have held 2 strands together in the natural light. And if there is a difference, it's very, very minor. Still, I don't want to just add the new yarn up at the sleeves. I am sure there's going to be a line where I change between the 2 balls. So what I'm going to do, I could, of course, rip back the body and do some helical knitting. I cannot bother to do that. I am going to put in some of the stripes that are also in the ribbings. I am striping it with, there you go, these 2 colors. So I'm going to put on one sleeve, I'm just going to put a red stripe. On the other sleeve, I'm going to put an orange, green, and red stripe, and then continue on with the green, and it's going to be fine. So that's my project for tonight, is to finish that sweater so the boys can wear their matching sweaters. And it's fine that they're not exactly the same. They're not twins, they're brothers, those sweaters. And this is actually everything that I have been working on this past week. I am trying to focus on a few projects rather than spreading myself thin. I got enough of that last year. I'm sure startitis is going to hit me at some point, and I will be casting on with wild abandon. And that's fine. I can do that. It's my knitting time. I decide what to do with it. But for now, I am really enjoying just slowing my roll, working on a few projects at a time, having something very simple and portable like my socks, and having something that I need to pay a little more attention to, like my blanket. I can crochet and read. I do have to look down at it from time to time, but I find it actually rather easy to be reading on my iPad and then crocheting at the same time. I can easily find my way in both the text and the crochet. So that's what I am doing in the morning, is taking some time to crochet and read. Yeah, other than that, I just mentioned we went to the monster truck show, which was so much fun. Kind of loud, but we knew that, so we brought protection, especially for the kids. It was my daughter-in-law and I who went with the boys to this event, and it was fun. It was something very different. Let's just go with that. One thing that really did surprise me and maybe freaked me out a little bit was the very high percentage of the viewers at this event. I mean, alarmingly high percentage were grown-up men, no kids. I mean, they could have brought a child just as an alibi, right? That was kind of strange, but I guess each to their own. I'm sure they also thought that I was being really weird with my knitting at the event. So there you go. We can all coexist. Yeah. Yesterday, I got to go out of the house, have lunch with a good friend, Lizzie, from the Pearl in Texas podcast. She was up here. She lives way down south. Texas is so big. It's It's huge. But she was up here and I got to meet her for lunch or brunch, I should probably say. It was such a lovely time, just sitting there, knitting, chatting, eating banana bread French toast. Wow. If I could only pick one thing to eat for the rest of my life, the banana bread French toast would definitely be a contender, a strong contender. That was delicious. She was so sweet. She brought me a little present. She had heard me talking about the stitch holders that I found it so frustrating with the cone-shaped stitch holders. They always fall off the needles. When they're really new, they might work, but lots of frustrations in those. So she brought me these instead. Look, one with little Buddhas on them. Aren't they just so pretty? One with these wonderful leaves. This makes me happy just to look at it. I can't even explain. It just makes me happy to look at it. It makes me want to knit with all the bright colors and then these little ones, which they're so cute. Little flowers. Aren't they just adorable? I just want to eat them. And I want to knit something in light blue. I really want to knit something in this exact color. It is happening. I have the yarn in Denmark. And it is definitely happening. I am going to knit something in this color. So, yeah. That was a wonderful present, much needed. And other than that, it's family life here. It's the quiet life in a family where there's two little ones. So, yeah, everything is slow. It's in a very calm, slow stream of days where we get to just hang out, talk about all the fun stuff. Little John is drawing a lot. He's good. His dad was too. His dad could be drawing for hours. He would draw these intricate pictures, and there'd be this whole story behind it. And John is actually doing exactly the same thing, which just, yeah, that's amazing. So I will go back to family life. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, if you have a trick to the afterthought heel, the placement of the afterthought heel, please let me know so I can at least make an informed guess about my socks. I hope you will have a wonderful week. Until we meet again, stay happy, stay safe, and keep knitting.